It's been a big hot mess in Newmarket along Davis Drive for the last number of years as they have been putting in place what should be spiffy new public transportation. Will it end up for Newmarket being what I believe St. Clair is for Toronto, which is, I guess it's okay if you're on the streetcar, but it has turned St. Clair into a nightmare when you're in a car, it would seem to me. An incredible amount of space used for a streetcar that great chunks of the time, because I used to be on St. Clair nearly every day. We used to be at Yonge and St. Clair with the radio station, and I lived west, so I was along that stretch fighting my way home some of the time till I found some other routes, which worked until I started digging up Eglinton. But it's a finished project, and it uses an enormous amount of space to, a lot of the time, have a streetcar go by with one person on it. See, everybody that thinks that it's a completely necessary thing wants to talk about when it is at maximum capacity. Well, okay, fine. I'll talk about the other side of it then. I still think buses would have been better. So is this going to work out in Newmarket? Well, one of the people I talked to when I was looking at this story a couple of months ago is the owner of the Cove Fish and Chips. His business was impacted tremendously by all the construction going on in front. You really had to try hard to get to his business as opposed to say, hey, there's a fish and chips place. I'm going to go in there, have some fish and chips and a beer. Chris Benson joins me now. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jerry. How are you this morning?
Doing well. So the thing was actually put into operation yesterday, correct?
It was 6:52 a.m. Sunday morning. The wheels on the bus went round and round right up the brand new Rapidway.
All right. So the purpose of it is to get people from where to where, Chris?
The purpose of it is to get people from the Eagle Go Station, which is a bus terminal, to the Park and Ride, which is at the corner of Davis Drive and 404.
And that's if you're going to then get on 404 and take the GO train.
Yep, and they've revamped the Park and Ride parking lot there, and it actually looks quite nice. I'm not sure it's going to get used, but they've done a decent job on it.
All right, I said GO train, but it's GO bus there. Is that right?
It's GO buses, yes. Yep.
Okay.
The GO train in Newmarket only runs at rush hour on only one way.
Okay.
So it's not really utilized. Plus, it doesn't take a direct route to downtown Toronto. So I think that the idea is that the bus's direct route is actually quicker, and it runs more frequently.
Okay. Now, somebody just wrote into me, Chris, at 7:10:10 on a text message and writes, I live in Newmarket, and it's way better than St. Clair. Is it better now? Are you happy with it despite all the trouble you've had?
Okay. Listen. At $100 million per kilometer, it better look nice. And I got to tell you, it does look nice.
Yeah.
Those stations are electronic. The pavement is a different color. It's appealing to the eye. I think it's functional. However, there's not a lot of buses that are going to be using it. I mean, this thing's only going to be used a few minutes an hour. So it is some wasted space, but as far as aesthetically, it's beautiful. There's no doubt about it.
All right, but even if the buses are only using this thing a few minutes an hour, as you said, is there sufficient room on the traffic lanes for the cars to move?
Well, that's another thing. From the beginning of this. Viva and myself have differences of opinion on what completion means. The curb lanes are still not completed. There are some obstructions. So currently, yes, you're still going to face some traffic. But in all honesty, do I think that it's functional? I do. I have to be honest, and I say it does look functional for both buses and vehicles. However, a good part of it will be used very limitedly.
Yeah. Somebody wrote to me, come up and take a look. Well, I think I just told you I was up there. I know St. Clair, and we also went and visited Chris and had fish and chips at the Cove. And Jason and I took a real good look at it and took pictures. And it was a big mess during construction, but everything is when construction is ongoing. What about the businesses along the strip where you are? When you say you have a difference of opinion on completion, the buses are running, but that doesn't mean that they've cleaned everything out for you guys.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's going to be better part of another year before that's done. However, I don't want to discourage people from visiting Davis Drive because it is night and day from what you experienced a few months ago. It is functioning well, especially what we've experienced for the last 4 years. So the inconvenience in the next year will be far less than it was in the previous 4.
All right. Well, you've survived this long. I know your business was really cut back severely, and I would have to guess so are your neighboring businesses. But has everybody survived?
No, I mean there's been lots of bankruptcies. Listen, Jerry, as an entrepreneur, it's amazing to me that I'm considered a success story just because I still have my doors open. It's not something that we go into business for. It's never a dream. And today, as I see that this has improved this much, I think about those people that lost their life savings on the street. There's numerous ones of them, and there's people that are still hanging on. And, even today they'll say to me, my business isn't better, my business isn't better. Well, it's only been one day, and we need to see that just by access alone, we should get an increased foot traffic into our businesses on Davis Drive.
All right, but if you are saying, I'm talking to Chris Benson, owner of the Cove Fish and Chips in Newmarket, if you're saying that even though at $100 million a kilometer it looks beautiful, it's not going to carry very many people, was this necessary in the first place?
Absolutely not. This was my position from the beginning, and I'll reiterate, I don't feel this was about transit. This is about revitalizing Davis Drive, expropriating properties, building condominiums, increasing the tax base, and it actually backfired because there's been no interest by developers. They've expropriated all that property, and now they're not getting any tax dollars from it because they own it, and they have the increased cost of operating this transit lane and all the electronics that come with it, and the vandalism that's going to happen, and I don't see anybody on the buses. I just saw a bus pass by about 20 minutes ago, and there was one person on it.
Somebody also writes me that there's still a town bus on the shoulder that doesn't run down that right-of-way.
Absolutely. This is another point.
Okay.
This is another point that I brought out, and it was reported by the Toronto Star in February, that, again, a lot of this was about putting utilities in and making infrastructure according to what would be good for condominium to be built.
So one last question, Chris. If you live in Newmarket, are you a Newmarketer, a Newmarketite, a Newmartian? What are you?
You know what? That's a good question. I think we're Newmarketers.
Okay.
That's what I think we are. So I guess that's open for debate.
Despite the trouble, do you love Newmarket?
Absolutely. I mean, there's good people in this community, and the amount of support that we've got over the last 4 years, people that have parked their cars across the street to come and visit us and to help the other businesses out. The support we got for our 5 for the Drive Twitter contest. There's been a lot of love that's come our way, and I can't think of a better community in Canada. Chris
Benson, owner of the Cove Fish and Chips in Newmarket. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Take care.
Hope this thing works out for people, but it has been, to some degree, the same story as the right-of-way on St. Clair. There may be aspects of it that people love now, but that's because they didn't lose their life savings as the thing dragged on and on. Back in late 1999, I got my first job in talk radio by sending an application tape that started like this. I have a bunch of relatives visiting, and they're farmers. And I love my relatives, but here's the problem with farmers. They think they have a God-given right to a lifestyle, and everybody else should make sure to provide it for them. Well, this ticks off farmers, but it made management happy at that radio station, and I got my first talk radio job. And it comes up today because I see this headline in a CBC article. Does Canada need family farms? That's an interesting thing to consider. We all eat. So we need farmers, right, to grow the fruits and the vegetables and provide us with the eggs and the pork and the beef and the chicken and everything else. But that's agriculture. That's not necessarily family farm. Family farm is a disappearing sector of agriculture, I think. Everybody used to be on the family farm at one point. I mean, basically, you had to raise and gather your food to survive. And gradually, they found ways to do that efficiently enough that somebody else could then stop farming and turn deer hides into coats or whatever it is that person decided to specialize in. And it is, in fact, a sign of social progress, of progress in civilization and society, that we can have fewer and fewer people growing the food. Because if we all had to grow our own food, we wouldn't have this radio station or maybe your job. Whatever, you wouldn't have my job and you wouldn't have your job. I might be going around complaining about the government out loud all the time, but I'd have to do it while hoeing the beets or whatever my job was supposed to be in order for everybody to get fed. And this has come to the attention of the person who wrote the article from the CBC that has me going on it because of a bill just signed in by or at least introduced by the Alberta government to make workers' compensation coverage mandatory on farms and ranches in the province. The NDP are in charge there now.
The government!
Yep. And so if it passes, Bill 6 will also make farms and ranches subject to occupational health and safety legislation. Okay, two sides of this argument. For supporters, this bill is a sign that farmers in Alberta are finally going to get the same protection as other workers. But of course, the other side is, people say this will put an unfair financial burden on family farms and alter their way of life. They're already trying to compete with great big agricultural conglomerates that have the efficiency of scale, etc. And so comic artist, cattle farmer Daniel Schneider says if we want to make sure that ethics and morals and values stay inside farming, we need to make sure that families stay inside farming. Okay, again, from a farming community, grew up working on my grandfather's farm and my father's farm, and, you know, neighbors and people I knew who would hire me to help throw bales onto a hay wagon during the season or whatever it might be. Farmers don't have a lock on ethics and morals. I know that's the sort of Norman Rockwell image of the whole thing, but farmers are people, and some of them are the best people you would ever meet, and some of them aren't. One of the farmers I grew up with is in prison at the moment because he was augmenting the farm. I always thought that family did really well. It turns out, apparently, they were using their farm as a little outpost, fly-in operation to move drugs across Canada.
Did you say augment?
Well, they had the farm.
Is that some sort of tool you use on the farm, though? I thought that was a tool on the farm.
You have an auger and an augment. You have to have one of each. National Post columnist Colby Kosh argues that the eventual replacement of family farms by larger industrial farms might actually be good for safety and social mobility in rural Canada. He brings up the same argument that I made about societal progress. Large farms are actually easier to keep track of. I mean, if you're worried about ethics or you're worried about how animals are treated and how they're raised, do you want to have inspectors running around trying to see what's happening at 10,000 chicken farms or several great big chicken operations you can actually keep an eye on? I know we have farmers who listen to the show. 872-1010 is the number. You got a cell phone on the tractor, don't you? 872-1010. It's a 416 number. Somebody wrote to me, Kellogg's pays more for the cardboard box than they pay the farmer for the corn for cornflakes. How many kernels of corn do you think goes into a box of cornflakes? It's actually not a lot of corn, so I don't know that that statistic tells us anything at all. Somebody is making a living in farming, okay? Or we wouldn't have the food we have. I know that's what farmers like to say, you know. How do you get to be a millionaire in farming? Start with 10 million and keep farming. Like that's sort of the joke that they like to tell. And yes, you can lose money in farming. You can lose money setting up an accounting firm. And you're supposed to know something about numbers, but somehow it didn't work out. It's a business. That's where I started here, is that we have people who think it's a lifestyle. And if you can make it a lifestyle and make a profit, God bless you. Everybody would love to do that with whatever it is they love to do. How many people, I wonder, would you think, what would the percentage of population be of people, if you said to them, what do you really love to do? And can you make a living at it? If they could, that's what they'd do. Not necessarily the job they're doing. Here is Neil on Newstalk 1010.
I have some chickens. I love farming. It's just a small little operation. I got like 6 or 7 of them. They provide me with eggs every day. But if you have one large conglomerate and there's some kind of disease, like, say, the bird flu, you're going to wipe out the entire food population for everybody.
I don't think anybody is going to say, Neil, 6 chickens is not farming. Okay? That's like me saying I have a backyard. I'm running a big real estate operation.
Well, I'm one person providing food for myself.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
The more people you have providing food for themselves, the less people you need to provide food on a mass quantity.
Okay, but also some of these big farming operations, the more that happens, the fewer people in agriculture, which means that people can do other things. I saw this happening among the farmers where I was growing up. You'd have people who'd have half a section of land they were scrabbling out a living on, and the next thing you know, one guy down the road coming up, he's 25 years old, and he buys that out, and now he's got his farm and that guy's farm, and they do wheat farming out there, and now they've got farms that are unbelievably large, and because with the equipment we have these days, they can do that. So there's fewer of them all the time. But we're never going to get to the situation you said, Neil, where there's only one chicken farm in the whole country.
Well, let's hope that doesn't get there, because then you have stuff like the faceless chickens I've heard about, and you forget to have you got to have some kind of connection with your food. Like I like looking at my chickens. It's like I literally name them, and I have a relationship with my food.
Well, which one's your favorite?
Her name's Shaniqua.
Shaniqua is your favorite chicken. Can you hold on a moment?
Sure.
All right, thanks. All right, so coming up, here it is.
Wow, another Call of Fame nominee.
The announcer was thrown off by Shaniqua the chicken. This week we're playing for a $200 gift card to Kathmandu restaurant, courtesy of Dine.to. Here is Noel. Hi, Noel.
Hey, Jerry. I just wanted to comment. I live out in Clarington, and I live in and amongst a ton of farms. And farm after farm after farm, I see new houses being built like glorious mansions on these farms. And I just question how the farmers can claim poverty when farm after farm after farm, I see new buildings going up. And like these houses are magnificent.
Some of those people, wait a minute. Some of those people with the big magnificent houses are people who work downtown on Bay Street and want to live out in the country.
No, these are working farms.
Okay, well, it could be both, actually.
It's possible, but I just see one after the other after the other. I mean,
yeah.
Every time I see it go up, I think, well, where are these farmers coming from with the poverty situation? I mean, it looks to me like everybody's making decent coin.
All right, I appreciate your call. Thanks very much. Somebody wrote in and they write, I'm surprised you're against small farms. You're usually against big government. When did I say I was against small farms? I only said we don't have to have the small farm in order to survive, in order to guarantee that things will be done ethically and morally. We don't. That's not me being against the small farm. It's against the arguments some people make. If you can run a small farm and you're enjoying your life and you're paying your bills, then good for you. The Alberta government is introducing legislation to make even small farms give workers' compensation mandatory coverage on farms and ranches. Did you hear me make the snarky comment that the NDP's in charge in Alberta now? They're the ones that are against small farms, not me.